Hi, how's it going? This is Resident of Collinwood for YouTube, back with another video for you guys and gals. No, this is not a Dark Shadows video. I will do a Dark Shadows video very soon. This video is about slashers. A while back ago, me, Patrick McRae, Gordon Namowski, and Alan Glant did the movie Faster PussyCat Kill Kill. Patrick McRae had asked me, why do I feel this movie um, you know, do I feel this movie was inspirational? And, I really don't feel I answered that properly. But I want to answer that here, so to speak. Because in order to really talk about why one movie needs maybe discussed, not just necessarily more than others, but among the slashers and the other things that inspired the future horror that we all know, we have to not just take a look at what came after it, we have to take a look at what came before it. And, I got it before I get into slashers, I have to get into gangster movies. Because I could sit here and sort of say, look, the movie Faster PussyCat Kill Kill is a great film. It's a 10. I mean, it definitely inspired. Now, I don't feel it doesn't get the verbal credit it should. The way a Psycho does, the way a John Carpenter's Halloween does, the way Hitchcock films do, the way Val Lewton's movies do, and so forth. Sometimes movies don't get that mention enough. So does the movie Lost by Time? In a weird way, it's not that I don't want to make it sound like people's lack of words about the movie devalue it, but it almost does. Because when you're not talking about that movie amongst those movies that helped inspire future directors, you have to mention Faster PussyCat Kill Kill. Not just because of Friday the 13th either, but because of movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I touched upon that in the video. And I'm going to touch upon it here. But before I get into that movie, I would say the not just the movie, but the person the movie Faster PussyCat Kill Kill owes sort of a debt to is Double Indemnity and Barbara Stanwyck. Though she wasn't a killer in a sense, she wasn't somebody who picked up a knife and gun and stabbed somebody or shot somebody. She seduces men to do her dirty work for her, and paid the ultimate price. But I would dare say, in the movie Faster PussyCat Kill Kill, you don't just have women who will seduce and know how to seduce the way Barbara Stanwyck did, is that they up their game even more so. But they also run across people who, especially the old man in the wheelchair, who know about what kind of women they might really be. Because the old man's not a great person either. I would say that the family you meet in Faster PussyCat Kill Kill, that the three women meet, without a shadow of a doubt, inspired the Sawyer family in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. Go watch Faster PussyCat Kill Kill. It's a great movie. We know the women in the movie inspired Pamela Voorhees. But I think the reason maybe this film doesn't get enough mention, and I'm going to get into the gangster movies. When you look, before you get into horror, you have to get into the gangster movies and what horror was in the 30s and stuff like that. Some horror movies, horror movies in the 30s and the 40s it's not that there weren't necessarily slashers. You had Dracula would stalk his victims, but Dracula's not a slasher. Um, I would say maybe probably the two earliest slashers. You know, I can't remember when what is it? Oh God, what am I thinking of? Jack the Ripper movie was. It was probably in the 30s, if I had to guess, or 40s. It was probably about that time, you know. But to me, if I had to think of a movie that sort of defines what an early slasher would sort of be in a weird about way, it would probably be The Invisible Man. Because here's a guy who you don't know when he's stalking his victims. You do know he will stalk them and kill them if he's double crossed. It's not about doing something. A slasher isn't necessarily about doing something with a knife or a gun. It's about stalking and killing your victims and there being a little bit of blood. Now, again, 1933, we didn't see, that kind of blood, obviously, no. But it doesn't mean that The Invisible Man is less of a sort of elements of slasher. It may not be a full-blown slasher, but it has a lot of elements of what an early slasher would be. What does your killer do? Well, he's able to stalk his victims. Why? Because he's invisible. And no one can see him. Now, I would also say, when you look at, because the gangster movies had what do the gangster movies sort of have to do with horror? Well, other than light and shadow, what the gangster movies have to do with sort of horror is noir added the type of language that you're going to get in the movies that we're going to come to know and love. Director Russ Meyer, Mickey Spillane, stuff like that. That those movies really deserve a lot of credit. I feel, especially those directors, for sort of shaping horror of what was to come. You might say, how? Well, because of the way they told their stories. They didn't need a psychopath with a mask. Mickey Spillane did not need a psychopath with a mask. He didn't need, a hockey mask killer, a guy with a glove hand who had razors on it. He had villains that were just purely sadistic and knew how to be sadistic and added that psychology of how to be them. Plus, the women too were in some of his movies were femme fatales. Right? So, with this with that, and plus with movies like The Big Sleep. Now, people say Casablanca is a love story, and it is, but it also has some noir to it. It has a good deal of noir to it. It's not it's not as intense as you would say The Big Sleep or Key Largo, but it has its own intensity to it. Again, the verbiage of these movies is what sets in motion, to me, the future of what horror is going to ultimately be. The way the men talk, the way the women talk, because it evolves. It evolves into that sort of, type. The men talk tough. Sometimes you get the women talking tough. Or sometimes the women are seductive and get the men to do something that they wouldn't normally do. these are all future tropes you're going to see in movies. With you sometimes see in horror movies, I forget what horror movie it is, that you see a woman seducing the villain. And you might say, well, why is she doing that? Because she can. She's a woman. She's very attractive. She's using her body and sort of her feminine wiles to trick the man into thinking he's wanted by her or she wants him. And you'll see that sometimes in movies. And not just in slashers, obviously. Now, to get into the horror aspect of this, I would say movies like Cat People is a slasher with psychology. It has stalking. The woman's a cat. The remake is really great too. It's more explainable than the original. I love the original though. I really enjoy the original. I'm not saying the remake is worse than it. It's not. It's really, really great. Okay, movies like I Walked with a Zombie has stalking elements in it. The zombie stalks. Okay. Look, stalking elements didn't just happen in John Carpenter's Halloween. John Carpenter did not invent stalking. Okay, I know that might shock some people. Stalking in movies has been around for years. Hell, even in gangster films, you would get one of the gangsters following somebody, in a sense, stalking them to find out where they're going. That's a part of stalking. So again, and Dracula stalked his victims. Now I would say more the werewolf attacked his victim, the Wolfman, if you will, attacked his victims at random. He didn't necessarily stalk them per se, because again, if the man who's the werewolf is out with somebody and he runs off because he knows what he is. He's not necessarily stalking the person he's with. And he's trying to get away from it. The Mummy had stalking elements. But where you really get into sort of credit, where credit is due, where you really want to, the one film that gets sort of credited a lot for inspiring some directors is a movie. I mentioned a movie earlier. God, I hate when that happens. Oh, The Night of the Hunter, where you have this priest who's not really a priest, who's a killer. He's a cold-blooded killer. And he's a murderer, and he stalks his victims, who he's after. He goes, he thinks in his mind he's doing the Lord's work. But he stalks his victims. Now, are all slashers intended slashers? Because I would say, though the Night of the Hunter has slasher elements in it, and it is more of an intended slasher than the next movie I'm going to mention. It's not such a slasher to the point of you're showing this ridiculous amount of blood. And that's a bad rap slashers get. All slashers are too bloody. No, well, not all. Not all slashers shed blood or shed a shitload of blood. A slasher isn't necessarily about taking a knife and stabbing somebody. A slasher could be just about stalking and killing somebody. For example, the woman in The Night of the Hunter, the mom of the kids, she gets she gets drowned. She dies. He ties her down in the river. Um, he probably strangles her to death. Then we see another woman laying on the ground who was murdered, and she was probably strangled or her. We don't see exactly what happened to her. Maybe her throat was slit. Maybe she was stabbed. We don't know. Um, but again, here's a killer who stalks his victims. Now, I'm going to talk about a movie, Faster PussyCat Kill Kill. What does it deserve credit for? Now, the Night of the Hunter is the preacher somebody who keeps coming back. I would more say he keeps following the kids. He's stalking the kids. He's not somebody who, when you shoot at him, he comes right back. Because when you shoot at him, he runs away. So he is not one of those killers who keeps coming back. I would more say, from a normal standpoint, there's where Faster PussyCat Kill Kill really deserves its credit. It, to me, and if you say I'm wrong, then please, to me, it was the movie that created sort of the super villain slasher. But it was a female, not a male. It was 3 females. More so the main female of the story with the other 2 females. I'm not saying the other 2 females weren't strong. They were, but not as strong as the main female in this movie. She keeps coming back. She, her, after she throws a knife at one of the blonde-haired girl who was a part of her gang, part of her crew, the other girl who she's with gets stabbed by the muscular guy who is living out his dad's fantasies of sexual fantasies and killing the women. As Al Gallant pointed out. Shout out to Al and Patrick and Jordan. And you get the old man who's in the wheelchair, who finally, when he gets killed. But this woman, she gets knocked down. She gets up. She, no matter what happens to her, she keeps coming back. Her will to live is very strong. And I would dare say there's where, it's not just the creation of Pamela Voorhees it deserves credit for. It's really Faster PussyCat Kill Kill, to me, invented the slasher supervillain in a way, in a lot of ways. Go watch it. I'll leave a link to the film archives. It's a great fucking film. And again, the family in the movie sort of reminds me of the Sawyer family. I would dare say that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the people who did that saw this movie. Because she's the woman in this movie. She's muscular. She fist fights men. She keeps killing them, and no matter how many times she gets punched, hit, or knocked down, she keeps getting up. That's sort of evident, not just in the last fight, but in the first fight as well that she has with the first man. She keeps getting knocked down. She gets up, and she keeps coming. She keeps coming. Who does that sound like? Michael, Jason, Freddy, the slashers we're going to come to know and love. I would say that's where Faster PussyCat Kill Kill deserves a lot of fucking credit and doesn't get enough credit for it. To me, it was not a male who inspired that. It was that movie. Because you could say, well, Dracula is a supernatural creature. The Wolfman is a supernatural creature, though it can be killed by a silver bullet. The Invisible Man is invisible. Yeah, he stalks and kills. He doesn't really get tested until the end of the movie. So you can't say he gets knocked down and keeps coming back up. He gets betrayed, but that's a lot of movies. That the Invisible Man did not invent betrayal. Sorry, sorry. William Shakespeare, I think that that might be off on that too. But I would say the movie that sort of first introduces the superhero, or sorry, the super villain slasher is Faster Pussycat Kill Kill. Now, the movie that introduces now, why does this movie sort of not get that recognition? I think because of a lot of the movies that came after it. Um, you know, movies like Psycho, and Psycho's a great film. Psycho had its own character who, though Norman Bates isn't somebody in the first movie who keeps coming back, because it's not the only time he's really tested is near the end of the film, by the other man who grabs him because he's wearing his mother's dress and wig. Now, I will say that when you look at movies in the 70s, you had a bunch of slashers. But again, by that time, Faster Pussycat Kill Kill had been a movie. It had come and gone. Those movies that have that slasher that keep coming after you and coming after you, no matter how many times you knock them down, really do owe a debt of gratitude to Faster Pussycat Kill Kill. Because again, I think it did inspire Michael Jason Freddy. It inspired inspired Scream, I would dare say, because again, Scream keeps whoever the Ghostface killer is, they keep coming back. No matter how many times you knock the one down, they'll keep coming back to finally you kill them. Again, but I would say where Faster Pussycat Kill Kill realizes we do not need to make these women. I think where it sort of becomes lost to some, and I'm not saying this as a knock to it. I don't personally feel this way. This is just my opinion. Because they didn't sequel the three women, because they didn't sequel the girl and turn this into a franchise. And franchises in movies weren't, well, the Universal movies, I guess, were franchises. But slashers weren't really known for franchising at that time, to me. Um, and two, it was all about really what Faster Pussycat Kill Kill really gets across more so than those other movies do. And I love Halloween, Friday the 13th, and Nightmare on Elm Street. It's the consequence for the three girls. The two get, before the main one finally gets hers, the other two get theirs. One by being stabbed in the back by the main girl, the other being stabbed by the man. Finally, when the other girl dies, you're sort of you are relieved that the girl was vanquished, but you appreciate the director for doing that because it adds that reality. If she would have lived, I think that would have been too much. Like, had she even been arrested, I think that would have been too much. No, arresting's not good enough for her. You got to kill her. And I think, Russ Meyer, I mean, he was a fucking amazing director. I'd say that's sort of where it gets lost a bit in time. But it shouldn't be, because it should be getting the credit it deserves. And it does deserve a lot of credit, because to me, I would dare say without that movie, we might not get the slashers we got in the 70s. I'm not saying we wouldn't have got them. We might not have got them. Because prior to Faster Pussycat Kill Kill, you didn't hear of the unstoppable slasher. And by the way, a movie that has elements of slasher, and a slasher who and has not just elements of slasher but is somewhat of a slasher, is a movie called Wait Until Dark. But the thing about that movie is the killer in it, he only really comes back one time. And well, when I say one time, he's only really tested at the end. The girl, again, the woman is constantly tested in Faster Pussycat Kill Kill. There's where you really appreciate her more so than any other. I appreciate her more so than any other fictional killer. I do think the movie deserves that credit. I really, really do, guys. Patrick, Gordon, Alan. Um, Again, I do think there's movies that wouldn't have, characters that may not have come to be if it weren't for that movie, especially the follow up movies that came out, more so the sequels of those franchises. Um, Again, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope I explained this well enough. Guys, link to the movie Faster Pussycat Kill Kill will be in the description box. Go watch it and get back to me. Let me know what you think. Have a great night.